right. So,
Oh, I hit the wrong one.
right. That's all right. I don't hear anything. I call me back. Well, yeah, now it is.
All right. Like I said, I'll start it off, and then you can go on from there. I'll just mute out then.
Jump in whenever you want to, also, but.
This is Judge DW. This is the Matrexit discussion group. October 16, 2016. The group disclaimer here. The information provided in this discussion is for informational purposes only. Please keep in mind everyone's individual circumstance or situation is different and may be subject to change based on various thoughts and opinions. A competent person to do his or her own research and homework if they feel elsewise. This discussion group cannot be held accountable for any material shared. We are just mere messengers and sharers of this information to help others. Thought-provoking information to actively help educate and inform those who may be unaware of certain topics. Information discussed is not to be construed as legal advice. If you have questions, comments, concerns, situations going on, please seek a competent attorney. Conference call, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
Today, wonderful Sunday afternoon. At least we're told it's Sunday, at the first day of the week. Tricked into treating it like the seventh day of the week, I guess, but well, we don't have at least not that I'm aware of yet. I'm just gonna be babbling some, yeah, all right. People have come to the group Tactical Sovereignty for their own various reasons, they're going through. Unfortunately, that's what it takes for a lot of people to realize that there's something grossly going wrong in this world. It's not just, here in Florida where I'm at, or where other members are at, or over in England where other members are at. This is a universal situation and yeah, I just find it really sad, though, that point where, it seems like I get phone calls from people saying, I've got court at 8:30 tomorrow morning. And, reality to get people to start looking around and saying, how am I here? How did I end up in this situation? It's a case where you haven't harmed anyone at all. Majority of people sitting in prison or probation or for their ankle monitor or a device for the vehicle that they got to blow in, or whatever the case may be. And those situations where anybody, how come this fictional entity out here rule over my life? And that's where people get lost at, and where people start, coming into dealing with the name and the legal character that everybody's been tricked into representing. Representing yourself, the man or the woman. You are representing this character because that's the only thing a corporate can recognize. You can't recognize another man or another woman. Construct is a fiction, and it doesn't recognize for any male, any female. It just recognizes other entities that have been created. And, there's situations that we've been seeing recently, and things I've seen in the past as well, though, where that they've made the claim as to who they are. Put out their notices as to, because in my viewpoint, 100% lawful way to go about it and the only way standing in honor by giving a notice. If anybody's ever been sued or anything like that, you know, one of the first things in the mail is an affidavit, you know, and you notice, you know, and they're stating and what their standing is and that they have a right to be doing what they're doing, you know. And that should be really the first clue to everybody that, oh, gee, this is how we're supposed to be operating. A lawful notice, which in their world, they look at it as a legal notice. Very often, truck is at the track at the same time. One side of the tracks is the de jure corporate running everything, running the government as a governmental servicing agency. Back is the originally the I'm sorry. The original side is the de jure side. The fact, all right. And so they play in the de jure side. They have to use the de jure side. They have to use the way of standing in honor of doing things. Their construct. And so that should be assigned to us as what we're supposed to be doing. Whether affidavit form, which way to do it, so what we should be doing. I was going to say, you know, here recently, and I've seen situations in the past where it said, hey, I've done this. I've said who I am and who I serve, construct that I'm serving. I'll look at them and say, well, no, this is all bullcrap. They'll go and research somebody and find out they're not, and saying, well, this person doesn't exist. This person must be a troll or something. If someone has made this claim that they have stepped out of this corporate construct, then within the corporate construct and can't find them, your answer. You have received exactly what you're looking for. Proof that they are not in existence within that corporate world anymore. Troll or what have you. Or you know, conspiracy theory, you know, which is one of the words that I dislike the most is conspiracy theory. I think this is one of those words brought across here by Edward Bernays. Bernays and many others, and hired, whether it was by Wilson or presidents, sway public opinion to get people way that wanted people to think. Because, yes, Judge Johnson, how are you doing?
I don't know who his uncle was.
Yes, his uncle was Sigmund Freud.
Yeah,
Sigmund Freud was also a teacher of Wilhelm Reich as well.
Explain the family history to you in Sure. I yield the floor.
Exactly. Psychological wealth. You know, people haven't read Silent Weapons. That's definitely an excellent read that will explain to you that at that time, and I think that book may be, I don't know, 20 years old, but it's very factual today. And things even that were happening hundreds of years ago have not changed. They really have not changed. Deeper and more layered is all it is. And as far as the people notices and sending their notices out, great. I think 3 weeks ago, David Roberts. And he really, circular file or forgotten about or whatever, thing to come of it. And with told him flat out. He knew what he had done. He knew that he had filed those things and that he was out of the system now. The judge couldn't do anything with him. Situation like that, yeah, you're going to see proof of what you have done there. Nobody is going to be knocking on your door and, you know, putting a pin on your chest and say, congratulations, you know, you've arrived home. With everything that's being done, are not to get out of anything. Want to talk about, you know, you're getting out of something. I remember hearing different people talk about tax issues and people around them, whether neighbors, family, whatever. You're getting away with something. You're getting out of something. We are not desiring in any way to get out of anything or get away with anything. Returning to the original position that we were at the land. It was the original position that for 10 days or so after we were born, people, their title isn't registered until maybe even a year after they were born. We're returning back to that window. So that also either Constitution or definitely prior to the Constitution being written. That's what we're really looking to do. We're told in Scripture, Babylon, and the Scripture said, get out of her. And that's what we're doing. Turn back to the original way we were meant to be on the land, supposed to be raised by our families, by society, and structure. And everybody is ordered now to throw their kids in school. These things to do, but that is information that gets thrown in right there. You know, it's schooling. A couple days ago, when we were talking about, you know, things that happen in court, in my head that I never really paid attention to, I kind of laughed. I think anytime now, in and out of jail, in and out of court, tremendously. I've had my experiences, but looking back, it was like, you know, the thing that always rang true whenever I went before the so-called judge was that they always asked me what grade level of school I completed was. Curious, because it's like they wanted to know, how indoctrinated are you? That would almost give them some sort of how to proceed from there. You know, is this somebody that is manipulated? You know, my education has been. This never occurs again in the future, but if it were to, spent one day, 1 minute. Fortunately, I had there that knew the evils of the whole situation, of the whole system, used for me through the public school. For me, did the injections that they want to give you. And I think, you know, I spoke with my parents about it, and I guess they had heated arguments, you know, how many shots I was going to get or whatever prior to school. I decided to just cut our losses and go along with the adder, and which was, you know, the minimum to get away with. And I think I had 2 or 3 at that time, way more than that. But those shots and everything that's put into our bodies is as much of it of the indoctrination, and that's what you see on TV is this whole system that with telling us don't question authority all day. You know, that, you know, sometimes you gotta go along to get along, I guess. That a lot of people have. But they are mostly authority out of fear more than anything else. And that fear acts as a roadblock in the brain. Fear tells you to do this or this will happen. It throws a roadblock up for you to take a step back and say, okay, wait a second. To them. Worry over me. They'll put you in jail. Yeah. Forget about that. That's the fear aspect. They have any authority. Authority can only be wielded over something else that you control. Well, I have some authority here. I'm the one that takes care of everything. And so therefore I can dictate whether or not somebody can come in and paint my living room blue. You have strength over the things that you actually have control over. We've been told over and over again, even President Obama, we've heard him in speeches flat out say, it is by the consent of the governed. Everything hinges on that one word, consent. You step back and say, okay, wait a minute, the ones that created a government, so how come they have the people put them into the position, get switched around. All had a great show on this last week, this week. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. Some of the roles of the federal government and of the state. Doing the same exact thing as what I just explained. She was breaking down the timelines. The states actually existed prior to the federal government. Just for, I think it was 7 or 9 years later. 9 years later. It went to like 79. Now the states have sat back, go ahead and recognize the authority of the federal government. We go back scripturally as well, and it says the borrower is servant to the lender. Government hands out all these little goodies and this and that to the states. Oh, we'll help you with security costs. We'll help you with your roads. We'll do that for you. And in return, then the state to honor the federal authority as an authority. But there's that I've noticed just in life, the states have not of the federal institution. To me, it was a great example. When the federal government wanted to raise the speed limits on the freeways, and Ohio said no. The federal government said, fine, you aren't going to raise the speed limit on the freeways, you take care of the freeways yourself. People have traveled through Ohio, but yeah, they've got construction on them like everybody else does at the most inopportune times. But their roads better or no worse than any other roads, any of the other freeways. There's still excellent roadways. The government, in order to be able to maintain a decent freeway system, no, they didn't. What they did is what everybody else should be doing, and that is putting on your big boy pants and taking care of your own household. This last week, I'm lying, and I started looking at different affidavits, statuses that have been done. And I posted maybe half a dozen of them, tactical sovereignty, as one I believe that had been Judge Bruce's set. And I've had people contact me. Okay, they say, we're looking at these different affidavits and different declarations, and I'm really not sure which one I should use. And that is very, very simple. And look at some of those affidavits. Should be very resounding in your head as to which one to use. The answer would be the same to everybody when you're trying to figure it out. Don't use any of them. You don't use because those things that were written, various people at certain levels of understanding, certain levels of knowledge, and according to those levels of knowledge and understanding. Everybody will different affidavits. You look through it, you have the body of it is written, how a notice is written. It might turn on little light bulbs in your head, things that you had forgot, you know. Sit down on a piece of paper, make notes. Include this, I need to include that. Because of comprehension, you're only probably going to be writing down things that should make sense to you. Things that don't make sense, you probably won't be writing down. But you should be able to sit and formulate their own notice, their own declaration of status. You know, one of the first things that happened when the United States of America, for instance, is they did the same exact thing. A notice called the Declaration of Independence, and who they were not. And I doubt very much the founding fathers, Adams, whoever that was involved, Jefferson, they said, hey, you know, let's Google Mexico and see some of the declarations they've done. Let's Google some other countries. And no, they were. First thing that people is realizing who you are. That struggle starts all BS over the whole name game. Saying I'm not the name, you know, run from the name. You know, people, when you start examining that, you know, we were born, we were given a name, we were given a nationality, religion. What do you spend the rest of your life doing? You spend the rest of your life have been attached to you that you've never really stood back and said, wait a minute, who am I really? I think if you talk to the average Joe on the street, you meet somebody and say, hey, you know, who are you? You know, and they say, oh, you know, I'm whatever. Well, is that who you are? You know, myself, I am a son, mother, I'm a brother, I'm a guardian over another individual, God, a child of the Creator, a trustee of the land. That's who we really are. I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. Period. That's what it really comes down to. I mean, people get stuck with, you know, it's me, it's mine, I own it, da da da. With my car defines me. I drive such and such a car, or a looking house. You know, I've got a 3-story house. I got X amount of property. And that's what they tell me. Went to college for this and that, and I've owned X amount of businesses and da da da. Today, that does not tell me anything about who they are. Nothing at all. The same scenario, that same identity, times over. There's millions of people who have gone to college and have gotten X amount of degrees, own houses. There's millions of people who have owned businesses. Who are you really? Who does the Creator identify with? Is that what the Creator sees? That's not what the Creator sees at all. And that's not what's important to Him. And at the same time, to you. So much to try to impress the Joneses. Look more like something that we really aren't. Clemens, better known as Mark Twain, he said that most lies are done. You know, you are not that Audi that you drive.
If I may.
But that's a lie. And you're not the gold you wear or the bling. Da da da. Go ahead, Judge Johnson.
Another one on Facebook that he supposedly said if voting made any difference, they wouldn't let us do it.
That's one of my favorite quotes from him.
Most on this call already aware because there's Facebook, and I posted my unregistration Facebook 2006. That was after I watched 2 documentaries pertaining to that situation. Democracy, and the other one called American Freedom to Fascism. Showed how easy it was to manipulate the programming, the overall, the computer-controlled voting machine. Keep in mind, I haven't seen this for probably. I think I watched it twice back then. In pretty much since. Key point in there. One was the machine with Beth Harris and her group there at the time. This was done by HBO Films. We applied for a grant from HBO to do the documentary, and if you went along with it, there's 2 guys doing it. They picked a machine, randomly did it, and showed how they could control it. The programming system itself. Meeting up in Oregon, at the time Sequoia was making computerized voting machines for a set of county commissioners. I think there was 3 of them. And they're literally there the same day. Made her presentation. I thought she did a fantastic job. They said, "Oh, we fixed all that, so go ahead and buy them." And the county commissioners went along with that. Commissioners here, Colorado, and I realized, if those guys are that easily swayed, and I know the guys here will probably go along with that just simply because people want not excuses per se. Speed of the situation. Well, we need to hand count, but no, you don't. You got computers, use them. Folks out there that don't realize what that entails, all that stuff. Anyway, with freedom of fascism, this is before. Testified before the state Florida legislature on being able to change the code to flip the vote 1548 any way you wanted to. For the Florida legislature, folks, that he worked for a company that could do this. And that convinced me right there. Okay, that's it. I registered on, as you saw, on August 3rd. To form the letter. And I look back on, and as Brian said, you look at for the sake of their content per se, how they're laid out and things of that nature. Because I look at my registration document. I'm myself as compared to now to then. 2007 affidavit I put in the record as corporate denial. What damned fool was I then putting that piece of garbage into the public record? 2011, not that far back. And I'm all thinking the same thing. Do a syntax version with David Lynn Miller syntax technology records. I'm not sure you can at that time I wasn't even sure you could record that or how correct mathematical equation. It's either 100% or 0. And that thing is 0. Really have no effect in a mathematical sense, not in a necessarily legal sense. Folks know. I can't convince the folks at the 508 I attend that voting does not count. I've already told them that. I said, yeah, you control the computers, then it doesn't count because you can program computers. A lawful voting system, folks, you need hand count public view, possibly paperweights at that point. You don't use them counting the ballots or calculating the ballots or anything else. You use people, and then you come out making sure that agree with the same total. Because we're a microwave society. You want results. The first ballot was cast. Get that? It's so fun. I'm looking forward. You folks have heard of The Onion, their parody site, and parody site that's got video clip and all that stuff on the CIA, the Facebook being a CIA org, which it is, and other things like that, including voting. We promise to act surprised when they've done videos the last 2 general elections on to act surprised when they find out the results and all that stuff, because it was released early. Our election, folks, is the election of the corporation. Not being participation in at all happens to deal with DC and their employees here in the land of the several states, and I yield the floor.
That's absolutely true. I'm a firm believer. Anybody walking around with one of those little stickers on their chest or whatever, day of voting, walk around with one of those little stickers, would have every legal grounds to walk up and immediately arrest them. You that belongs to somebody else, that to sway an election, that you're going to go put in a vote that makes a difference. Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution, right there, will tell you how the president gets into office. He does not get into office by the popular election of people. I bring up, and some people do come to the Electoral College, and they agree on everything, and at the end of the day, they say, so who are you voting for? Everybody has just been stuck into this set. It's blinders I don't even realize. It's you put on a certain pair of sunglasses, and all of a sudden you see the truth around you, and their mind is to govern. Their mind is controlled and governed so much. They are. They see something that is blue and they think it's red.
The movie was absolutely excellent, and I wish I knew then that I know now, realizing the whole blinding everything, delusion, the whole bit. At the Electoral College, in fact, there's folks out there that want to eliminate it, one man, one person, one vote. And I'm going, okay, what's the definition of person in this case? I don't get any responses back on that as such. So whatever. Here's the situation for those of us biblically speaking. I got a whole lot of brethren. We got a whole lot of brethren that are stuck in the spiritual Babylon. We're stuck in they're stuck in 1 Samuel 8. And I don't think they truly realize it. As much as I appreciate the pastor of the 508 I'm attending, believers should be in. And I've told him in much more private conversations, I don't find any scripture to back that up. He took out a book of a guy by the name of Wayne N.E. Grudem, D-E-M. And apparently he's done some got a book called Systematic Theology that supports our participating, particular satanically controlled. I look at scripture, separation. I don't see Yeshua contracting with Satan. I don't see Yeshua trying to contract except the people on the land, as it pertains to the apostles, the women and men and women chosen by the Father in that situation, and other situations therein and thereof. Getting Paul's attention. Paul was a politician. Saul of Tarsus. He was a Pharisee. In the New Testament at that time, Paul's was the one to have. Paul that folks look up is the issue that his family was extremely wealthy. And because of that, he was able to teach of Gamaliel, the top teacher of that time. Very wise guy, wise man, by the way, too, as well. And that guy, Paul had the Torah forwards, backwards, sideways, upside down, about every direction you can dream of. He had it down. As Paul said to himself, he was the Pharisee of Pharisees. On his horse, off of his horse by the Savior, and said, "Why are you persecuting me?" Involved in that, none whatsoever. So, as Jesus freaks, Romans 10:9 believers in Satan. Well, technically speaking, the judgeship, grand juries, and all that he said are exactly that. Or if you did a choice between a democracy and a republic, okay, a choice. And in a republic, I have a choice to look for before governance. Democracy, not so much. I yield the floor.
Yeah, the problem, one of the many problems, such a fine line between a republic and a democracy, easily manipulated into a democracy, which has actually become an oligarchy. It happened without people even really realizing it. At the times of Yeshua, John the Baptist, what John the Baptist was doing as well, through the church, people were getting baptized into the government, essentially. John the Baptist was doing the opposite, baptizing people into the kingdom of heaven. People were going and setting up their own and other away from the corporate welfare. And indoctrinated so much to go to the government, whether you're false, needing permission for one thing or another, or getting food stamps or this or that. Look first to the government before we even look to our Creator. More willing and want to help us more than anything else, we've turned our back. And we think more about the corporate structure around us than the spiritual structure that we're supposed to exist in. You're talking about the voting machines. Remember the name of the guy? I think his last name was Connors or something like that. Just shot up in about 2 months ago. And he was in charge of the voting machines, the Democratic Party up there for Hillary. And he got shot. He got shot like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that, walking over to 7-Eleven. Read that the next day. I thought, gosh, what did he know? Much proof of illegal activities within the Democratic Party, whether it was pushing out or whatever happened. And also, people thinking, okay, yeah, they know the Electoral College chooses, but they're like, yeah, but the Electoral College has to go ahead and side with the people, has to side with the popular vote. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Perfect proof of that. They voted for one Republican candidate overwhelmingly. It came down to the electoral votes being counted for the state, but he's there at the convention that with Donald Trump, and I mean I launched it only for that reason because I knew that state had gone. So I just wanted to see what really transpired, and sure enough, so no, the Electoral College doesn't have to follow the will of the people. Times and often they don't actually, and which myself, I really, I've done the same thing. I did the rescission and also received written confirmation back with an embossed signature as well that been rescinded and that I was no longer on the rolls. A lot of people are like, okay, they want to get their birth certificates authenticated, they want to do this, want to do that. What's step one? Very simply, sending out your notices. Thing to do is the voter's registration. I don't care if people, because a lot of people say, oh, well, I never registered to vote. Well, you know what? I had never registered to vote either, but I found my name on the rolls. Okay, you on there, whether it's through or whatever the case, they get you on there one way or another. Is political society. Being part of the political society is step one. Then goes of jurisdiction over you. I thought it was really funny when I had contacted about a month after they put me in touch with the guy who is in charge of taking care of putting names on and off the rolls, etc. Brought it up on his computer, and I see it right here. It says you're no longer a resident of this county. Okay. But I thought, well, that's interesting because I didn't think it had anything to do with being a resident. You step back a little bit and say, well, wait a second. Looks at being on the voter rolls, being one of their serfs or being one of their subjects or being one of their residents. A lot of people don't fully comprehend the definition of resident. I hear a lot of people, even in our circles, talk about, well, I'm a resident of here, I'm a resident of there. Understand the meaning of the word resident. The word resident or someone that is traveling abroad temporarily while in commerce. Traveling abroad to where? You're a United States citizen, you claim you've been born in the United States. So of the United States, that's Washington, D.C. So there's a whole bunch of people that were all born in that one little 10 square mile area. They've left their original jurisdiction. They've taken it with them, seeing themselves as a resident and using a zip code and being identified by a zip code. And they've carried that, say, an umbrella of jurisdiction because it's for anything, but they've taken that with them. They've taken the assumption and presumption with them. They live in that assumption. And to me, that's the scariest thing, is what has entrapped people who don't even know it has entrapped them. I said that the easiest people to enslave are those that think they're free. A country here, people who think people on earth. They think they live in a free society. And all of them have all the contracts, permits, and licenses and certificates in their pocket to prove that they're free as well. Sorry, a free man is not bound to a piece of paper or himself as that piece of paper. That's what everybody's been tricked into doing. and until people really wake up, take care of that one simple word, consent. If tomorrow morning the people woke up and said, you know what, we don't think so. We're not playing this game anymore. Monopoly board. Back onto the land and what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be land and of each other. Are we our brother's keeper? I'd say absolutely we're our brother's keeper. My brother's keeper. Who's going to watch my butt? Who's going to watch my six? And that people have been falling into no longer the brother's keeper. And not only are we not protecting each other, standing with each other. When everybody would stand with each other, this whole fraudulent system would fall flat on its face. For the prima facie evidence of fraud that it actually is, that everybody so gladly likes to attach themselves to. Talking about the banking, I read something from him one time where if people of America ever learned how the banking system and how money actually works, in the street by the morning. And that's absolutely true. I was going to say that that's one small part of the fraud, but actually, all the money is on it too. I'll really watch the money. Is what's running everything. It's a corporation that's running everything. The corporate U.S. or Walmart. We have no lobbyists taking care of each other. But Walmart and Pepsi and Disney, they've got their fair share of lobbyists up at taking care of themselves. And unfortunately, at the People's House, there is no representation for the people. Representation that's there for the oligarchy and for the corporations. That's one of the reasons why, even locally, if I've got to go to a store to buy something, if I feel like going out to eat instead of what I prefer to do, go to mom and pop shop, hardware store. I know it's going to cost more. I know the restaurant might cost a little more, although the food there will definitely be better. But that's really the way we're supposed to be operating, is taking care of each other, businesses, and being our brother's keeper. If anybody want to chime in, we're on a new line tonight. We're using the toll-free 1-800 number that Judge Bruce Doucette's call goes over. We'll be hitting, I think, tonight, number 15, 16, or whatever. And so at the end of this call this evening, in about an hour, just going to drift right into his call. On this line that hasn't do any of his calls, there's always a lot of great information being shared there by Judge Bruce Doucette and Judge Johnson and many others. Hang on while this call jips into that one in about an hour from now. I don't know how many people we've got on the call. Line, it's star to unmute yourself. Star and chime in. How you doing?
I'm Georgia.
Hey, Marshall, how you doing?
Well, I got two things to report today, and I think they're very important. Is news that has happened through the Secretary of State of Georgia. We send, we've all been sending in our oaths to be recorded with our state. And, they record them as usual, and your signature, receipt card, and everything back. Well, my son, and this is, I guess they're just now starting to do this, but when they returned his, has been recorded as it was reported and stamped Secretary of State elections.
Wow.
Yeah. Which means his oath was recorded in the state of Georgia in the elections division. For putting those oaths there, which I thought was the very same time, pretty much that oath says that you are a natural man or woman living on the land. So being recorded in the elections division records of the Secretary of State of Georgia. Second thing I wanted to bring up real quick, because I know this is going to make airs and a lot of people were wondering. Huge breakthrough today. Thought right there called me in a panic. Was traveling in her private car from South Dakota, and she had to pull over on the side of the road, surrounded by state troopers. She got on the phone with them, and they told her not to say anything, and then they got me on the phone. What I want you to say is, woman, with not under your jurisdiction. Then I got
Skype's me as well on that.
Nikki to call the dispatch and talk to a supervisor with the state troopers. She told them who I was. Do not, officers right now, world of hurt. And every officer left the area, free travel to where she was going.
Awesome.
Yeah, she said.
Yep.
Yeah, Marshall Haywood. She Skyped me, and I said, "Mickey was been trying to contact you on Skype. She's a whole heck of a lot closer. Please talk to her." I can't.
Yeah.
Colorado Springs.
Got with Mickey, and then got with me, and I said, no. I said, you call them right now, tell them who you are. Use your authority. Tell them who you are. The other line is who I am. You can desist from that private person now. They pulled all of them away, and she didn't hear from Dan for a few minutes. And I said, well, call and check. So she checked. She called, and she said that y'all have not detained and that she is free travel. She said, or y'all are going to be in a world of hurt. He said, no ma'am. Called off, and she is free to go to where she needs to go. No ma'am.
My gosh, you got them on remote control, Marshall Haywood.
And that's in Wisconsin. I'm in Georgia.
Yep.
But I thought that was a very significant process of going forward in what we're doing. I'm in the light now. Run in with
Thursday, you know.
And I actually had a run-in with, and we all know, or everybody knows, that Clayton County in Georgia is one of the corrupt counties in Georgia. And an officer, I was walking, and he stopped, and I had my firearm and my ID on me. I asked the question, and I said, I'm a Continental, U.S. Marshal. What is that exactly? And I said, excuse me? What is that exactly? And I handed him my ID, and he said, ma'am, have a nice night. And he took off. So people are waking up and are aware of who we are. That means on the state level. That means on D.C. level. That means everywhere. And so, I just want everybody to know that happening to the good, not the bad. Just stand your ground and use your, righteous and not manly, then things can get done. You know, I had the common law grand jury in California contact me personally, and she sent me a couple of things, and I posted some of those. Files. So of course, you know, FedBook won't want you, you know, post PDF files, so I just have to give them out through email. Tells you step by step to get out of every press, Social Security, everything. If anybody hasn't gotten that information, a lot of people have, just email me and I'll send you a copy of that news. It is backed up law. It's backed up to counteract their codes and statutes. Refute it whatsoever.
I wanted to digress back to what you were talking about with the Secretary of State and being recorded at the Elections Department. You brought up IRS as well, which ties right in. There's a lot of people I've spoke to, you know, I talked to them about doing the, and a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't vote. Well, no, the decision of election for the IRS has nothing to do with voting. It is making a choice. That's what the word election means. Election is choosing. Passing it, they're recording it there for the Secretary of State because that's what you're doing. You have shown you've elected who you are going to be serving.
Okay. Yeah, we just got it in the mail today, and I looked at it and I was like, what? One out of all these rows that had come back in the elections division.
And technically, that's probably where it really should be going to.
I think it should be, and you know, with them sending that back, you know, it's my son. You know, he's like, well, damn, I feel special. You know, because nobody else was getting that type of, you know, response for all these recordings, but the fact that it's seeing we the people take a major. They're not just hearing it, and they're not just seeing people post things here and there. Seeing it when these votes are going in. So that when should we, you know, be sending them to the Secretary of State? Shouldn't we just stop that effort right now? No, we shouldn't. Now they are seeing that we the people are standing up, and we're not going to take it anymore, and they're taking us seriously. Very important that we are taken seriously because we're not in this just self appointed or whatever they want to call it. I don't even know what to call these people. I just call it ignorant bliss. But we're not doing that. We are making the de facto department and realize that we have a voice and we're standing up to what's going on in the world today, period. Important.
You know, one of the things that I've kind of pondered in the back of my mind, and I'm not really discussed with anybody, when it comes to voting, I think really is that you may see any real action regarding the vote of is at a local level. It is choosing supervisor, you know, for or things like that. That may be the only place where you really see much effect at. In situations where it's gone the other way, but I've kind of wondered if voting or electoral process to the de jure side is tied to the actual republic. I almost like to say that the republic is sitting dormant. I've said this very often, and them going and filing that with the Secretary of State Elections Department, the de facto has woke up what really is, and it really is operating on the land. Somebody in the department said, hey, this really should be going to the Elections Department.
Right.
So that happening just kind of strengthens, the thoughts I've had in the back of my mind regarding that. The whole process, as far as voting goes, has been totally perverted, say it nicely. Yeah, I think that's fascinating, and that very well may be a sign of breath of life in the Republic. I'll yield with that if anybody had anything to add. If I may. Yes.
Yeah, just Judge Mickey did actually go through that too, and Judge Johnson was talking about party just to confirm that also as well. Excited on the phone. That's been land here and around. Woke me up, so she's like, "Why weren't you so excited?" I was just, you know what I mean. But now actually letting it sink in, and here.
Yes.
I want to point out something in this, what probably ended up being about a five-party effort with Jan, Marshall Haywood, and two or three of the Minicorp agents. To my knowledge, Jan Linda grafted into this in the matter of a position as far as an oath is concerned. She's just being as a woman on the land. When I say we, I'm not talking about myself specifically. I referred her to Judge Mickey because she said she was in. So that's a whole lot closer physically to Judge Formanek than it is myself. Crying out for help. I couldn't do anything for her from here. I don't have phone numbers to call them and say, what the heck you think you're doing? Judge Michael Lean is a lot more bold than I am. Is about 10 times bolder than I am. They plan on getting there. That is a non-confrontationalist, and Judge Mickey and Marshall Hayward are confrontationalists. Shouldn't be wearing, or in what form they want it. You're going to get top down, that they both did. This shows, for those that have the authority to come forward and exercise it and put down the demonic forces in that matter and equation. I'm looking forward to them both testifying Wednesday night. That'll be a good jump-off point for the judges, marshals, grand jury administrators, sheriffs, and anybody else in the juror capacity call Wednesday evening. To that, I need more testimony like that, because I'm looking forward to executing that here on El Paso County, where I'm of knowing how these clowns think and what the end result could be. Not necessarily one to shoot first and ask questions later. Exactly in arms. I have authority now. Great. Fantastic. We'll leave you alone. Anybody else you want to drag along for the ride, that's great. Commerce. They're not quite Chicago. Colorado Springs starting with a C and Chicago starting with a C, and almost being the same political perspective, just separated by the issue that one place is open carry and the other place is not, to say the least. We're being dragged kicking and screaming towards leftist perspectives, and I am thrilled silly about how handled herself on this. How I already knew that Marshall Haywood, if she got involved, and I didn't even know about it until tonight, a few minutes ago, that if she gets involved, story over with Marshall Haywood, so like talking to Judge Byfield. Tim, you better be prepared for one of two things: either a half-hour losing argument on your part, or just giving up. Ends one way or the other.
Well, and you know, this situation goes back to what I was saying earlier about being your brother's keeper. Difficult if you are the only one out there flying solo. The fact a corporation steps forward and sees that there's other people go up, and this isn't just one lone wolf out here doing this. Other Americans that have woke up forward and making their claim to their position, the rightful position to the land, and as natural Americans, a corporate construct. I've had my situations where it was just me. I've heard many other people talk about situations that they may have in court, you know, where struck down, and they're like, well, they just kicked me out, you know, and shut me up and didn't let me continue. And it's like, saying, you may not have to say it one time. You're probably going to have to say it up to 3 times. You're going to have to make it very well known where you are at before it's recognized. Do the boot the first time that you open your mouth. Shut your mouth from that point on, they've won. It's just you. You're saying. I've had a situation here at home. I glanced up at and I saw an unmarked vehicle parked at one end of my property, and I saw one parked over at the other corner of my property with badges around their neck. But I met them out front. I think they were just looking to see, and seriously, an enemy combatant, am I somebody that's at war with them or not? You know? They had their excuses for wanting to talk to me and this and that. Speaking with them, I turned around and walked back into the house. Out the window, and they're just staring at each other like, did he just walk away from us? You know, the situation probably about a month after that occurred was on a road. There wasn't anybody on the road that night, and got surrounded by 6 patrol and a canine unit. They held me there for about 20 minutes or so. I think it was the same situation. They were just looking to see. I had somebody, you know, I've had too many situations in the past. People enter into this line of thinking that they're in, but they come at it from a very aggressive and hateful and violent standpoint, and you know, they've shot officers, or it's been officers that died. I hate that word they use for sovereigns, you know, but in that can't be the standpoint that we're coming from, you know. But we stand our ground as to who we are, and we don't have to stand our ground that we're going to cause damage and harm. At the core of our beliefs, which is do no harm. If you follow natural law and you don't do harm, it's down to intent. Intent to harm, and you do not. The road less traveled here so far will be a lot smoother to travel on. It's just the position I'm at. That there were going on. These people that we see in these decorated cars on the road, you know, they're out there. That's all they're there for. They're there to uphold the law. Although a lot of times they try to use force, they can't make you physically follow every little thing, uphold it, and they keep it upheld financially. But there is, and that's all they're doing. They're just trying to generate revenue. I really think these situations with people getting pulled over and the people standing their ground, well, they're going to see that have their revenue stream start to, because it's not just going to be a situation today with somebody getting pulled over, but I've heard about it now. How many people tonight on Judge Bruce's call are going to hear about it right over the next week? Hope that it doesn't take long for the population to wake up and say, you know what? Don't have to be so willing with our consent. We can decide told everybody, you know, either you're going to serve your creator, or I read a bunch more amendments here that are going to guys who need a babysitter. And out of laziness or selfishness to sit back and let somebody else run things for them, put us into the predicament that we find ourselves today. Chime in there.
I was just going to say, and that's what, Judge Mickey was talking about, that we can't use because of the de facto knowing they don't use sovereign. I said, tell her to say this: a natural woman, a political holder, and leave it at that, and don't say another word. And then I told, you get on the phone, and you tell them who you are on the phone, cease and desist now. And within 2-3 minutes, they did so. When, like we talk about wordage, you're not going to be able to use certain words where you are in other, states. And it's just Nikki and Tom that are in Wisconsin right now. That's it. So that's why they were trying to get, outside help. And then when she called me, I didn't answer at first, and she texted. She said, "This is Judge Mickey. I need you now." We're back, and that's when I got involved. And that goes back to what you said. We are our brother's keepers, and that's very important. And that's what I try to get to Tuesday night call: is you are your brother's keeper, and that oath needs to be taken very seriously, and you need to stand on that oath. On what you say you are, your word is your bond. Don't act in fear. If you act in fear, no cops are just like dogs. Fear. And if you act scared when your authority, one man or woman, and you're right, then they smell that and they will create an incident. We don't want on it with an authority statistical way, then these people are going to be like, wow. They are like that. If you, and I've seen this all through my state, even though my state is a little bit more certain things. There's pounding in Georgia, literally. And, like Saturday, I went to the mall. Always. I had my ID. And I know the supervisor over the security of the mall. Just joking with him when I said it, but I said, hey, the police parking is right in the front. But I get towed if I park right there, and I was just playing with him. He said, ma'am, you can park anywhere you want to. and he winked at me and walked off. The guys with him. You know, you gotta have a rapport. Public defenders, and not in a bad way. You got to have a positive rapport around you, because they know shit hits the fan that somebody that's not in the de facto system, if something were to come up, all hell were to break loose, then they're like, hey, I can go get her. You know, her group of marshals that are in Georgia, because we all know where, you know, that they're there, and we can go get them and, you know, use them as backup, or let them do what they got to do, or, you know, vice versa. That's what we're trying to get, identity, your government, and with the continental marshals and the continental judges and your common law grand juries and everything. You have to build a positive rapport, because brainwashing has been with the schools, and brainwashing is just ages. Literally, the people that are so ignorant to what's really going on, and that is the correct word, that they are ignorant, brainwashed to be ignorant of the true law. Been going around like little robots and saying, okay, well, we got to do this and we got to do this, because they didn't know any better. We start educating and telling these people, no, you do have a different. You don't have to sit on your hands and sit by and let them control you and tell you what to do and what not to do, because you're not working, you're not in their system like that. It all goes back to education and being positive. Who you work for, and that is the Creator. The Creator knows from the beginning of the time. He chooses, and usually he chose to do his work. And the reason why he did that, you know, Yeshua, when somebody came to him and said, well, why do you always sit with a bunch of sinners? To save the ones who knew the word. I came to save the lost. And we're saving the lost. Certain ones of us are actually chosen, so the path is going to be a little easier to step into this path that we're not chosen but wanted to be on this path. It's a big difference, and a thing that a lot of people don't understand. And, you know, God calls people, and they don't open that door, or they don't, then he will give them the delusion and the illusion, and let them bask in that. Do open that door and do answer that call. He opens many doors widely, simultaneously. Doors you never even thought existed will start opening, and things will start happening. And that's what we're seeing, walking in the Word of God and doing, educating the lost and letting them know that what is corrupt and evil in the world today is not your only choice.
You know, and that's absolutely true. Having a rapport. I know a lot of people have a hard time getting things done, whether it's getting things filed or whatever. For example, I'll tell you, when I go to file something into the courts, you know, I put a big smile on my face. Hey, how are you doing today? You know, are more likely to remember you for how you make them feel, not for maybe words that you've said or necessarily things you've done. Remember you by how you made them feel. The next time when you see these, and you know, and they see you, they're going to remember how you made them feel last time. And you don't necessarily think that in your mind. they're going to be automatically open and receptive to you. Yeah.
I go around town everywhere I'm at, and every officer I pass waves at me. Literally, I am. And I approach them in a positive, hey, how are you doing today? But educational way too, you know, when I talk to them. So now when they see me out anywhere, out of their way to wave at me. And, you know, all these other people are looking like, why? This around open carrying and around doing whatever she wants pretty much. And all these officers are just waving and smiling at her. And they're looking at me like, huh? Well,
Who are you?
They don't get it. They don't know. Yeah. They're like, who are you? You know, you royalty or something? No, I'm not royalty. God's eyes, I'm royalty. I'm royalty to the kingdom. You know, it's because I've made a positive rapport around me, and I don't criticize them or put them down or say you're doing that wrong, or you know, go at them in an angry talking about. You know, I go and I approach these people and I smiling. How are you doing today? How's your day? And, you know, we get into a discussion, we get into a conversation, and it's all about education and those codes and statutes that you're under. Yeah, I know. That's usually what they end up saying. Yeah, I know. We need to talk. You know, I'm like, yeah, okay, anytime. You know, and I give them a business card. I have business cards that I have made up. And so I give them my business cards. I just call me anytime. I don't have a problem with that. What wins their respect of who you are, even though you're not under rules, that gives high respect for you about it in that type and fashion, instead of going in it in an aggressive party over you and you're going to do what I say and what me to do, and I'm not going to give you my ID, and I'm not going to do this, and I'm not going to do that. On YouTube and all these people that are enticing, you know, and it's like, there's a better way to do that. You know, you can get a whole lot more, you know, and shit, literally. It's all in how you present yourself. If you present yourself, me, I can be in pajamas and flip-flops and still get respect. Present yourself in a professional, educated, articulate manner. Faith that you've got God's hand on you as protection. Nothing that you cannot accomplish, and there's nothing that your government cannot accomplish if we work in that manner, period. And I yield.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And you spoke about, to remind me, I was sitting here on the lanai a few months ago. There had been something going on in the neighborhood, and this was like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And a couple officers walked up on the back of my house. So I walked out there to talk to them and to know what was going on with this or with that or whatever thing in the neighborhood that night. And a female officer, a big spotlight that shines over my backyard. Noticed the male officer kind of sidled around to the back side of me, and out there just wearing my shorts and my flip flops, you know, not carrying a weapon on me, you know, a knife, you know, obviously not carrying anything. And the officer did that. That just kind of perturbed me because I wasn't able to stand where I could keep an eye on both of them shining in my eyes. So, and I just, you know, held up my hand and stopped him, and I said, you know what? I said, no contract or joiner. And the female officer said, we understand. And they walked away. And watching it on the line from whatever. And I came back in and she said, what did you say to them? And she said, oh my God. And, you know, this was early on with my research on this information. there are little key words, that you use. Understand things that are in their vocabulary. You don't come at them from a standpoint of, or standpoint of war with them. Like she said, you don't give them shit. So truth, if you give shit out, that's all you're going to receive in return. Then that's all you're going to get back from them is anger. They're well trained in that. Have more training in coming back at you with anger than give. That's what their training is all about. And because they are the American Army, I kind of the other day, and somebody typed in and said, "Oh, that's the same old tired movement BS." And it kind of took me by surprise, because when I started researching these things happening and the fraud that's really occurring on the land right now, joined any patriot groups or anything like that. I mean, independent research and studying. And I'm on the computer. I'm home from work at night. And also on my way to work, I'm listening to somebody's seminar or something like that. On the way home at night, one of the judges or marshals calls from Colorado or wherever. Home, and I'm right back. That's all I do. I haven't turned on a TV and basically I don't have time for it. And like I was saying, you start getting into this being chosen. You may be chosen from the direction that start looking at these things from. I may choose you at that time. Several years ago, when I first started researching this information, really thought I would be on a call right now, or on, I guess this is call number 13. I would have called you a liar. There's no way. Really did not comprehend what the situation is and what literally everybody is living in. A huge problem with identity theft. I'll tell you what, everybody's identities have been stolen. Even those people whose identities maybe not necessarily were stolen, like they lost their bank account money, who you are has been taken away from you and been hidden from you. The biggest problems that people have, psychology goes today, identification themselves. The door to so many other things, whether it's drug abuse, alcohol abuse, fear that they naturally have, people have, and the anger you may see from officers, anger isn't towards you. That's an anger that is within the people, an anger that they have. They don't even realize it's there. It is derived from a frustration. They are an officer or they're a police officer out on patrol. Frustration because doing what they originally set out to do. And a lot of officers may have originally set out just to be able to carry a gun because maybe they got beat up in school. I don't know. I think that a vast majority of people that are in the air quotes public service with a totally different intention. They slowly into better than what their first intention had been. And that creates a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. And I think relieve that anger and frustration greeted with open arms. And when they are greeted with respect and from a standpoint of you're the bad guy, I'm the good guy. I approach them from a respect of I actually kind of feel sorry for them, honestly. Their job basically is tickets and throw people in jail. Well, what kind of a life is that? You know, a lot of them now that are stepping forward that have been waiting for the day that people and realize the constant they're in. And these officers or court see that, okay, now necessarily a belligerent I'm dealing with it. This is somebody actually that this guy would have my six in a situation. I think, like she said, you know, you get a lot further with sugar, a lot farther with honey, you know, and that's what you're hopefully going to get back in return the majority of the time. But the majority of the time, it'll make the road a lot smoother sailing. If anybody else want to pipe in, start doing these calls out with us now and then. Doing this actually to help teach people this. And, you know, if you need to file something, how to do it. I get the supervised birth authenticated, you know, how to do it at the state level and then the federal level. That and, you know, rescission of signatures, et cetera, is stuff that most all of us have done, and we can and find those windows to state that things need to be sent to. You know, I know a lot of people are having problems with birth, you know, that path doesn't need to be done anymore, whatever. And the way I look at it is, you know, I know that certificates, titles, whatever that comes from this de facto system, I know they are all fruit of the poisonous tree. It is also that we have our standing with them. Because that shows them when you've taken the steps to get things done, they know that though this isn't just some template that you pulled off from the internet last night. You have actually taking steps to get taken care of, apprehend the fraud that's behind it. That is the greatest evidence because that shows intent. The strongest thing that you can have on your side. Else out there, star will unmute you. People we've got on the call right now. Gatekeepers, is there anything that tells you that? This is a new system we're dealing with this week, guys. The system we had been using was charging people like a penny a minute to use it, and I was having a hard time letting them call in, and other people were having similar issues. So we said, you know what, let's just go to the 800 service, and that will definitely be convenient for everybody. Gatekeeper?
Yeah, I'm here.
Toasted, if I may.
Hey, Toasted, how you doing, buddy?
Good. I want to update everybody on the channel. We are still uploading content, such as what you're hearing right now. Will be on the channel later. We are currently at 1,482 subscribers. We are doing extremely well, and for everybody out there, share this knowledge and make sure everybody gets educated. It's not just this show, it's all the shows that are on the channel. You could pick over an hour long, and you can be educated. These days, pretty much any day that. But you know what? Before I get to rambling, I yield the floor.
Hey, Toasted, do you want to give a rundown you've got through the week?
Yes, actually, I can do that. We've got, starting with tonight's call here at the top of the hour. Do set. We've exited the Matrix, completed that brand new show. Around some names on that, but I'm going to stick with what Judge had in mind. Okay, there's that one with Edward Johnson and Dave. Today, the Marshals call. Today, Gathering of the Judges, We the People in Colorado. Thursday is our brand new off the ground call. News and information. Still trying to figure out, you know what? We're moving quite along with that.
If I may.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Let me be the gatekeeper. I just want to add into on Thursday night, it's going to be a discussion round. I yield.
Friday, paid call. All right. Not on this one. Not have the number in front of me, but I'm pretty sure people can provide. There's a thing floating around that has all the numbers on it. Let's see here, Saturday, and Sunday. Well, the rest is history. It repeats again. This is Toasted. I yield.
Appreciate it. And I don't want to say demonstration, but maybe to a little level. Through the week, multiple times a day, such as DW or man getting phone calls or messages, texts, about one thing or asking questions about something else. I remind people, okay, yeah, I'll feel free to come on the Sunday call. It's a question. So I think a lot of people might feel like they're going to be looked at as being stupid or being a stupid question. The only stupid questions are the ones that really aren't asked. There's a lot of people out there that question, and there's people out there that haven't even gotten to the level of we're at regarding this whole situation or the how-tos of some of the process. You might be enlightening other people to something they didn't even know yet, you know. I'd like to actually take a whole bunch of people rather than just, you know, or one man or woman, rather. And, you know, it's very hard for us to be talking or whatever, changing language that we were brought up with our whole life and using some of the words like we were brought up with. Myself, I hear people talking and I hear the different words they use and I'm like, gosh, I don't even know what that word means. You know what I mean? But it's very easy to fall in that trap of using some of those words that we've been tricked into. Another can of worms, but even the English language itself is just all horrible mix of put together, and some of the words that we use, word like confirm comes to mind, you know, confirm something. We made sure, for instance, that it's real, okay? Word apart, con means not. Okay, so it's not firm, you know? It's the opposite of the way we use it, and so much of the English language is that way. It's very confusing when you go and break down the root words and analyze them. I remember when I was in school that was one of the first things that we learned to do in English. You know, phonics isn't even taught in schools anymore, but it was to break down words, you know. Now I understand why they don't teach that in schools anymore. The English language itself, very much the opposite of what we think it is. Yeah, of America was a great experiment, you know. It was an experiment to, or how easy it would be to control the masses. So that experiment has gone pretty good. And a lot of us are awakening. The fact of the situation that we're at and that everybody else is in, trying to seek a way to educate each other, waking up around us. And a lot of times it's amazing that you're met with, because they've gotten very cozy in their slavery. And it's very sad, but also one of the hardest things for people when they start waking up. They're becoming uncomfortable because they used to be a little bit more comfortable in their slavery. And once they realize over their eyes, anger inside you is because, you know, it's much easier to trick somebody than convince somebody they've been tricked. I know that. Nobody wants to know they've been tricked. Yeah, that's how we're doing, Judge Johnson.
Yeah, I wanted to make a caveat on that some folk that are joining this effort are comfortable in their slavery. They realize they are slaves. They're being pursued on this or that. Case an example that the man no longer exists on Colorado. I think his name was Bob Carpenter. On the other side of this dirt hill out there we call the Rockies. He discharged the debt of his mortgage. Sandy Malera says, you fully fulfilled your obligation on this. We're going to foreclose anyway. We're taking the house away from you, giving it to somebody else so we can gain more profits. Nailed and lost. That was 4 years ago. Situations like that where they have, you know, they think they're comfortable in their slavery. They don't realize it. They're not paying attention to it, and suddenly something happens, either by divine movement or happen that Satan gets to attack them in one form or another and get their attention, and they finally decide it's time to investigate. And then Yahweh brings a whole bunch of folk. That were basically going on with me. And I prayed this through. He asked me to find out why my name was spelled in all caps in 1995, and brought me learning this stuff all the way through. Back in 2003, that I could not get through my thick skull for a bit, was called legal fiction. I had straw man figured out what we're referring to. Legal fiction wasn't sticking very well through that thing, and that was
Well, we're looking at just about 7:45. Bruce's set will be arriving shortly. His call is going to be getting going in about 15 minutes here. There's some discussion, of course, about college tonight. I just kind of got a thought in my head, something to leave everybody with. I want to give everybody a little bit of a homework assignment. Hopefully this will reach some people who aren't totally awake out there yet. One of those people, homework assignment. Go and investigate and find what corporation needs to choose their next CEO. And been taken back over by the IMF, listed as the United States of America, and Bradstreet as a corporation. Construct that the role of government here, the Clearfield Doctrine that and a corporation cannot coexist. It's one or the other. As a corporation. And find one out there that lets the employees choose the CEO. It's just a way to keep everybody feeling like they have an effect.
I was in on this, Brian. Technically speaking, not even U.S. Inc. allows its employees, the supposed landmass, to choose the next CEO. That's already decided, already appointed, and the fake voting results are made to match up with their decision. I yield the floor.
Certainly. And it was one of the board members for Ronald Reagan. Someday the people will wake up and realize that voting is nothing but mere entertainment finances. I think I'm gonna cut off here so that get rolling with his call and talk to the people he needs to talk to ahead of time and get his format set up. I appreciate everybody coming on. Next week at 6 o'clock Eastern time. Hey, you have a handful of questions for us or for our guests that we may have next week. People we've been talking to, so it should be a great show next week. With that, Gatekeeper, I think it's time to sign out.
Sounds good. The Matrexit discussion group, if we're going to keep this number, I think if there's any noise in the background, please be respectful and mute yourself out. Coming up is Judge Doucette's show. Out. It has been the Matrexit discussion group with Judge DW. The revolution is information.